Titus Murdoch, Language Learning Potvaliancy, a story of intemperate language learning in social environment. Overly regimental teaching when learning a foreign language stunts students' creativity and facilitates physiuncus, a lack of curiosity. When I'm referring to overly regimental teaching, I'm not referring to its organizational organization's limited contextual real-world experience. To be blunt, my mate Perry from Portugal, a native Portuguese speaker, learnt his English most effectively while in the state of inebriation. As a soft-spoken, overweight male, Perry lacked confidence with ladies. Ergo, his professor in London, England, taught him English while drinking in pubs. This facilitated speaking in a manner more effective than that of any classroom environment, where a student is surrounded by peers and needs to protect his pride. Devoid of real-world communication nuances, this facilitated speaking in a manner more effective than that of any classroom environment, where a student is surrounded by peers and needs to protect his pride, devoid of real-world communication nuances. When I was in Shanghai, I was often on the prowl with my language-learning peers, mucking about and putting ourselves in somewhat precarious situations. After one late night, the boys and I were famished. Ergo, we were seeking nourishment. In the end, the only stop we came across was a sketchy street vendor. A sketchy street vendor catalyzed our nasty premonitions of food poisoning. A fate suffered by the younger brother of Antonio. His food poisoning was so bad that the remainder of his 2-week trip was spent in the lavatory. As we approached the vendor, we saw an older woman and her grandson. We appointed Antonio to do our ordering, as he was currently the most proficient in Mandarin under our current inebriated conditions, i.e., he was the one slurring his words the least. Inside this dingy, tungsten-lit back stall, Antonio started picking and choosing the foods. The criteria for picking and choosing the foods being those least likely to give us food poisoning. Antonio proceeded to pick out various unrecognizable foods by utilizing his limited Mandarin at the time, repeating naga, meaning that one, while pointing at each of the ingredients. After sitting down with our food, we thought we were out of the woods, but the garrulity of the proprietors prompted conversation between us and them. Now we were in a conversation with them with limited Mandarin. Fuck me. The conversation progressed with an abundance of trial and error, as we were making a lot of mistakes because of the tonal language that is Chinese, provoking our rapid-fire attempts, trying to match proper tones. The proprietors asked a steady stream of in-context questions such as, where are you from? Where are you going to school? How do you like your stay? And other questions, forcing us to use our brains and recall our studies. We all enjoyed ourselves and chipped in to the conversation whether it helped or not. It ends up that this episode was a very effective learning method, mostly because it put us on the spot and got us to attach our Mandarin learning to a compulsory real-world conversation, with all the mistakes and misunderstandings inevitable in real-world communication. The classroom tries to imitate this real-world experience. Unfortunately, the classroom cannot work as well as the real world, in much more nuanced in ways that cannot be replicated. Some problems of a formal setting is a classroom is filled with concerns of pride, GPA, and certainly there is less incentive to try and fail a multitude of times. Fucking hell. When we were conversing with the proprietors of the street shop, we were laughing and coming up with creative ways of communicating as a team. We would do whatever it took to be communicative, because we had a strong incentive to fill our drunken bellies and eschew the test our intestinal fortitude. We failed as much as it took to finally succeed. In the classroom environment, there were no retakes. And time constraints preclude language learners from mastering practical speech. Yes, a typical language class does try to promote street conversations, but until you do it in the actual street, it doesn't sink in, and there's a lot of contextual clues. In Perry's case, he's not only become a fluent English speaker, but also a fashion expert in British designs. How he became a fluent English speaker through pub going through the pub-going method? I don't know exactly, but maybe it's because he had to distinguish between a multitude of English lagers and ales. Or maybe because fuck. Or maybe he had to be wary of the strange English pub food such as haggis or kidney pies. Somehow, after all that mess, he became a fluent English speaker. In any case, the unconstructed learning environment forced Perry to adapt to his to a quick-thinking, natural English-speaking pace. Perry had to be creative in his recall of English just as we had to be creative in our Chinese communication. The small bit of real-world success led to genuine desire for learning. In Perry's case, he learned about English fashion. In our case, by conversing with the Chinese proprietors, we gained confidence to use more of our Chinese. In addition, we now understand that although we may still get food poisoning, at least our proprietors are not That's bullshit, that sense. Fuck that. At least inebriation and socializing in the real world help promote the less inebriated and creative interactive language skills that is the core to communication, as well as providing the desire to be able to communicate ever more effectively. Ergo, all language classes should be conducted in pubs.